All right, looks like today we're going to be doing Trig, lecture 2.1 and 2.2, that's OAS 2A, A2, A17, and the student will determine if a sequence is geometric. And remember, a sequence, when we did that with arithmetic, is just a bunch of numbers in a row with commas in between them that have a pattern to them. And so we're going to determine if a sequence is geometric. I'll show you how to do that. Find the common ratio, we'll define that, of a geometric sequence. Find a given term, that's like they're asking you to find the 50th term or the 8th term or something like that of a geometric sequence. And write the explicit form of a geometric sequence. It's kind of like writing the explicit form for an arithmetic sequence. So let's take a look at what we're doing here. A sequence, that's a bunch of numbers in a row that have commas in between them, is geometric if the quotient of consecutive terms is constant. So if you have a term here, a comma, and a term here, and you divide the one on the right by the one on the left, you'll get a number. And if you do that for every single consecutive pair of terms and you get the same number, then the sequence is geometric. For instance, determine if the sequence is geometric. If it is, find the common ratio, that'll be R, that's what we're going to call it for ratio, the 8th term, and the explicit formula. I almost always find the explicit formula first so I can find the 8th term. First I'll find R, then I'll find the explicit formula, then I'll find the 8th term or the 10th term or whatever term they're asking us for. And here's the explicit formula we're going to use. A sub n means the nth term in the sequence, like the 3rd term or the 10th term or the 103rd term or whatever, A sub n. A sub 1 is the first term in the sequence. R is the common ratio, and n minus 1, n is the number of terms. So here we go. We want to determine if the sequence is geometric. Well, let's do that first. 20 divided by 4 is 5. 100 divided by 20 is 5. 500 divided by 100 is 5. So my common ratio is 5. This is geometric. So there's my common ratio. It asked me to find it if it is geometric. Now, if these weren't the same, I'd just say it's not geometric, and I'd be done. Okay. What else were we supposed to do? We want to find the 8th term and the explicit formula. Well, we can't find the 8th term until we have the explicit formula. Well, we could just keep multiplying by 5. Multiply this by 5, you get that. Multiply by 5, and keep doing that until you have 8 terms. But I want to show you what if they ask us for the 500th term? How would we do that? Well, we take the explicit formula, that's this, and we plug in what we know. So I have A sub n is equal to A sub 1 times R to the n minus 1. And now I'm looking at A sub n for my explicit term is equal to A sub 1, that's 4 in this case, times 5 is my common ratio to the n minus 1. That's the explicit form that they've asked us for. And now I can use this to find, in this case, they're asking us to find, I believe it was the 8th term. Yes. So we're going to find the 8th term. We have this for the nth term, any term we want to find. So I'm going to find the 8th term. A sub n is A sub 8 now. 8th term is 4 times 5 to the 8 minus 1. Well, that's 7. Okay. So A sub 8 equals 4 times 5 to the 7th, and we just do that with our calculator and come up with, well, it'd probably be an exact number, I would imagine. Come up with a value, and then we hope we haven't messed up in putting it into our calculator. 4 times 5, raise 5 to the 7th, I got 312,000. Scooch that down a little bit. 312,500. And that's the third thing they asked us for. They asked us for 3 things. They asked for the 8th term second. They said find the 8th term, but we found it last because it's easier to find it if we have the explicit formula to use. Oops. So I'm looking for my key here. Let's see. 312,500, yay! Okay, so let's do another one. Kind of get the hang of it here. We want to find the common ratio, if there is one, see if it has a common ratio. Negative 15 divided by negative 3 is 5. Hey, it's 5 again, what do you know? Negative 75 divided by negative 15 is also 5. This quotient is also 5, so it is a geometric sequence, dividing 15 divided by negative 15 divided by negative 3. So the common ratio in this one is 5 also. That's just a coincidence. Now I want to find the eighth term, is what it's asked us for, the second thing in the instructions. But before I do that, I want to find the explicit formula so I can plug the eighth term in and find it. So my explicit formula is a sub n is equal to a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. That's the general form. And now I'm going to find a specific form that has to do with this particular geometric sequence. Here we go. I'm looking for the nth term. It's going to be a sub 1, that's negative 3 in this case, times 5 to the n minus 1. And that is our explicit form, and we can use this to find the eighth term or the 100th term or any term we want in this particular sequence. So I'm specifically asked for the eighth term. I'm going to scroll a little bit. There we go. So I'll say, well, the eighth term would be negative 3 times 5 to the 8 minus 1. That would be a sub 8, the eighth term, is equal to negative 3 times 5 to the 7th. And then we let our calculator do the walking and hope we don't mess up. Here we go. Negative 3 times 5, and I'm raising the 5 to the 7th power. I got negative 234,375. Negative 234,375. Negative 234,375. So we were asked for, in our instructions, the value of r if it's geometric. We determined that it was geometric by finding that the consecutive terms had a common quotient. If you divide the one on the right, divide one on the right by the one on the left, you'll get the same number every time. That's the common quotient. We determined that it was geometric. We then were asked to find the eighth term, so we found the explicit form, and we were also asked to find the explicit form, so we used it and found the eighth term. These are the three things we were asked for, although we didn't find them in the order that they asked for them in. Okie dokie, let's take a look here. See what we got going on here. 6 divided by 3, we're doing the same instructions. 11 divided by 6 is not 2. It's not geometric. So I'm done with this one. If we don't have a common quotient, the sequence is not geometric. And if you're doing a multiple choice worksheet, this would be one of your choices. You just pick it. All right? Because we're following these instructions. And here we go. We're going to try it again. Negative 16 divided by 4 is negative 4. Positive 64 divided by negative 16 is negative 4. Negative 256 divided by 64 is negative 4. So our common ratio is negative 4. Notice that when the common ratio is negative, that's fine if it is, that if I divide this by this, I get negative 4. That means if I multiply 4 by negative 4, I get negative 16. Negative 16 times negative 4 is positive 64. Positive 64 times negative 4 is negative 256. So if our terms are alternating in sign, that's fine. All that means is that our common ratio is negative, and there's no problem there. So if you see that, don't get all confused and think that something's wrong. It's just fine. So now I want to find my common ratio, a sub n. I mean, not my common ratio, but my explicit form. A sub n is equal to a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. That's the general form. We were given the explicit form. We just did the general form of it, and now we're going to make it a specific case to this geometric sequence. I'm looking for the explicit form. A sub 1 would be the first term. R, we just found that was -4. Make sure you put that in parentheses. To the n minus 1. And there's our explicit form. And now we want to find the 8th term. So, a sub 8 is equal to 4 times -4 to the 8 minus 1. That's a sub 8 is equal to 4 times -4 to the 7th. And that gives me a sub 8 is equal to whatever that turns out to be. And hopefully I haven't messed anything up. As you know, by this time of the year, I do mess things up from time to time. I try not to, but what are you going to do? Let's see if I did. 4, raising times -4, raising that to the 7th power. And I got -65,000. 536 would be the 8th term. Okie dokie. And I'll look at the key and see if I messed it up. Hopefully I didn't. Yay, that's right. So we found the 3 things we were asked to find in each case. In this case, we found that it wasn't geometric, so we just made that statement. And that's what we're going to be doing on today's worksheet today. Okay. And this is actually, this is a trig class, but as we did the last couple of days, our pandemic last year cut off our Algebra 2 short. We didn't get a chance to cover this, so we're covering it now, and we'll get back into trig later. You can do this.